Right now, in the quiet solitude of this room, your mind may be doing the exact thing it has done for so many nights before. As the busy world outside finally slows down and falls silent, your thoughts might be carefully replaying the conversations of the day, scanning every word and expression, silently wondering if you disappointed someone. You may be carrying a heavy, quiet ache in the center of your chest, a profound, lonely exhaustion that comes from spending yet another day adapting, fixing, and shape-shifting to meet the needs of everyone else around you. Maybe you came here tonight because you feel entirely empty inside, as if you have poured every drop of your precious energy out into the world, leaving absolutely nothing left for yourself. But before we ask your tired mind to look closely at that emptiness, I want you to simply pause. Let the deep quiet of this room slowly wrap around you. Notice the dim light, perhaps the soft, pale silver of moonlight, tracing a gentle, steady path across the floor or resting lightly against the wall. Listen to the distant sounds of the night outside, the faint, rhythmic rustle of the wind moving through the sleeping trees, the quiet hum of the world continuing to spin while you finally lie down. The night air outside your window is cool, calm, and asks absolutely nothing of you. Allow yourself to feel the comforting weight of the blanket over your tired body. Feel the soft, accepting shape of the pillow rising to meet your head. You do not need to hold yourself up anymore. The mattress beneath you is sturdy, wide, and fully capable of carrying your entire weight. If it feels right, take a slow breath in through your nose, letting the cool, quiet air fill your lungs. And as you exhale, feel your body softening. Let the tight muscles in your jaw begin to loosen. Let your shoulders, which have been braced all day to carry the heavy expectations of others, drop an inch deeper into the bed. You are safe enough to soften. Nothing is required of you now. Dear friend, the profound exhaustion you are carrying is not a sign that you are failing at being a good person. It is your body's desperate, quiet wisdom telling you that you were never meant to be the endless savior for everyone you meet. The true paradox of our suffering is this: we exhaust ourselves trying to keep everyone else perfectly comfortable, terrified that if we stop giving, we will somehow lose their love. We believe that self-abandonment is the price we must pay for belonging, but true compassion does not require the complete destruction of yourself. The Buddha taught that genuine loving kindness must always include the one who is giving it. Giving out of the deep fear of rejection or the desperate need for approval is not true generosity. It is an exhausting, heartbreaking transaction that leaves you feeling invisible in your own life. You are not broken. What you are feeling is not failure. It is simply the ache of a heart that has forgotten how to be its own friend. The very thing you are fighting, the guilt of finally saying no, may actually be the doorway to the peace you have been desperately searching for. Tonight, we will not try to defeat your pain or force your mind to be perfectly silent. We will gently learn how to stop treating the disappointment of others as a threat to your survival. We will learn how to hold your own heart differently. You do not have to solve your whole life tonight. You only have to breathe and listen and allow yourself to exist exactly as you are. Maybe you have felt this too, that quiet, lonely ache of living your entire life for others. Over time, you have built a powerful, unyielding identity around this endless giving. You have convinced yourself that to be loved, to be valued, to be allowed to take up space in this world, you must be the one who fixes, the one who accommodates, and the one who never, ever causes friction. You have become like a person standing over a deep, ancient stone well, frantically pulling up heavy buckets of water to nourish every single plant, traveler, and garden in the forest. You draw the water from dawn until dusk. Your hands are calloused, your back is aching, and you are trembling with fatigue, terrified that if you let someone go thirsty, they will abandon you. You believe that your only worth is in what you can provide. And yet, right beside your own house, Your own garden is completely parched. Your own roots are dry, your soil is cracked, and your beautiful leaves are wilting because you are giving every single drop of your water away. You look at your own withering life and feel a quiet, devastating loneliness, wondering when it will finally be your turn to be watered. You wait for someone to notice your exhaustion. You wait for someone to take the heavy rope from your hands and tell you to rest. But what if the very effort of constantly operating that heavy pulley is what is keeping you separated from your own peace? What if the strength you are so proud of, your endless ability to endure everyone else's demands, has secretly become the very thing destroying your own roots? Tonight we are going to explore the gentle, necessary art of letting the heavy bucket rest on the ground. We are going to explore the profound Buddhist wisdom of turning the water inward and releasing the exhausted ego that believes it must keep everyone happy in order to survive. Setting boundaries and reclaiming your energy does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the name of love. It means you allow yourself the grace to be wonderfully, perfectly human, which means having limits, needing rest, and occasionally allowing others to carry their own weight. As you lie here, listening to the calm, steady cadence of my voice, let your breathing become a little slower, a little deeper. There is nowhere you need to go. There is no one you need to please. The messages on your phone do not need to be answered tonight. The conflicts of the day cannot be resolved in the dark, and the demands of tomorrow have not yet arrived. The only thing that exists right now is the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the slow, rhythmic, effortless tide of your own breath. When a worried thought about someone else enters your mind, do not fight it. Do not judge yourself for having it. Simply notice it like a dry leaf drifting across the surface of a still, dark pond, and let it float quietly by. You do not need to fish it out. You do not need to manage it. It is just a thought. It is a visitor, not your identity. Allow your arms to rest heavily by your sides. Notice if your hands are subtly clenched, as if you are still gripping the heavy, rough rope of that wooden well. If they are, gently and with deep compassion, invite your fingers to uncurl. Let your palms open softly toward the ceiling. In this simple physical gesture, you are sending a profound, beautiful message to your exhausted nervous system. I am putting the heavy burden down. I am no longer responsible for the whole world tonight. It is a brave thing to finally admit that you are entirely depleted. It is a deeply spiritual act to surrender the need to be the endless provider of comfort. For so long you have confused self-sacrifice with nobility. You have thought that if you could just manage a little more chaos, absorb a little more of everyone else's pain, and hide your own needs a little better, then eventually you would earn your right to rest. But rest is not a reward for flawless endurance. Peace is not something you are granted only after everyone else is perfectly happy. Rest is your natural state. It is the quiet home you can return to whenever you choose to stop pulling the heavy rope. If it feels comfortable, let your eyes sink a little heavier into their sockets. Feel the space between your eyebrows smooth out completely. Every time you exhale, imagine a physical wave of heavy, warm relaxation washing down from the crown of your head, cascading over your shoulders, pouring down your back, traveling through your legs, and exiting out through the soles of your feet. Let the bed hold you. It is sturdy. It will not drop you. As you settle deeper into this safe, quiet cocoon, let me prepare to share a story with you. It is an old story, born from a quiet, sun-baked village far away, about a kind-hearted person much like you, someone who was endlessly giving, someone who was deeply, quietly exhausted, and someone who eventually learned the beautiful, unexpected relief of watering their own roots. Allow the gentle imagery of the story to slowly form in your mind. Do not try to analyze its meaning or force yourself to understand its riddle immediately. Simply let the words wash over you like a soft, warm rain on dry earth. Keep breathing slowly. Keep trusting the stillness of the room. We are journeying together now, away from the loud, demanding noise of the world and into the quiet, patient, well-watered sanctuary of your own heart. Imagine, if you will, a small sun-baked village situated deep within a vast, quiet valley. The mountains surrounding this village are ancient and watchful, trapping the dry, shimmering heat of the summer sun. At the very edge of this village, where the dusty road meets the long trail leading into the mountains, sits a deep, stone-lined well. The water at the bottom of this well is profoundly cool, clear and sweet, fed by a hidden underground spring that has flowed in the dark for centuries. Living in a small, simple wooden house right beside this well is a villager. He is known throughout the region as the kindest, most generous soul in the valley. From the moment the sun crests the eastern peaks to the moment it sinks into the purple shadows of the west, the villager's door is always open. But if you were to look closely at this man, you would not see the vibrant, joyful energy of someone who is nourished by their own life. You would see a man who is quietly, desperately fading away. His daily routine is grueling. From dawn until dusk, a continuous line of neighbors, merchants, and weary mountain travelers come to the well. And for every single one of them, the villager operates the heavy wooden pulley. He grabs the thick, rough hemp rope with his bare hands. He leans his entire body weight backward, straining his shoulders to heave the massive, water-filled wooden bucket up from the dark depths of the earth. The rope burns against his calloused palms. The wooden gears of the pulley creak and groan under the immense weight. With every visitor, he hoists the heavy bucket over the stone wall and pours the cool water into their cups, their flasks, and their travel skins. He does not do this simply because he loves to give. He does this because he is terrified of what will happen if he stops. He believes that his entire worth as a human being is inextricably tied to his usefulness. He is haunted by a quiet, persistent fear that if he ever says no, if he ever tells a traveler that he is too tired to pull the rope, they will turn away from him in anger. He fears he will be seen as selfish, ungrateful, and ultimately unlovable. And so, he smiles warmly at every person who approaches. He nods, he listens to their complaints, he absorbs their heavy energy, and he pulls the rope again and again and again. Does the weight of this wooden bucket feel familiar to you? Think of the sheer physical exhaustion in the villager's arms. Think of the way he constantly braces his legs against the dirt, preparing for the next demand, the next expectation, the next heavy lift. This is the exact same invisible labor you perform every single day. This is the heavy, rough rope of shape-shifting. This is the grueling, silent work of keeping everyone around you perfectly satisfied, so that you do not have to face the terrifying possibility of their disappointment. Right beside the villager's small wooden house, there is a small garden. It is his own personal sanctuary, or at least, it was meant to be. In the very center of this garden sits a shallow clay basin holding a rare, incredibly beautiful lotus plant. But the clay basin is completely bone dry. The earth inside it is parched, baked by the sun, cracked into deep, jagged fissures that look like broken pottery. The broad green leaves of the lotus, which should be vibrant and reaching toward the sky, are curling inward, their edges turning a brittle, papery brown. The plant is slowly, silently dying of thirst, sitting only a few dozen yards from a well filled with endless water. Every evening, as the villager finally finishes serving the last traveler, he looks at his dying lotus. His heart aches with a profound, quiet grief. He feels the tragedy of his own neglected life, but he tells himself, "I will water my garden tomorrow. I just have to make sure everyone else has enough first. Once everyone else is completely satisfied, then I will take care of myself." But the line of travelers never ends. The demands of the world are infinite, and so the lotus continues to wither. One particularly brutal afternoon, the heat in the valley is suffocating. The air is thick and completely still. The villager has been drawing water for hours. His hands are raw, small blisters cracking open against the rough fibers of the rope. His back is throbbing with a deep, dull ache. He lowers the heavy wooden bucket down into the dark well one more time, but as he begins to pull it back up, his arms begin to tremble uncontrollably. He is running on absolute emptiness. Tears of pure, unfiltered exhaustion begin to slide down his dusty cheeks. He is weeping silently, gripping the rope, trapped in the prison of his own endless giving. Through his blurred vision, he sees a figure walking slowly up the dusty road. It is a traveling monk. The monk wears a faded, simple robe and carries a small wooden staff. His face is serene, his steps unhurried, and he carries the profound, grounding silence of the mountains with him. Panic immediately seizes the villager. He hastily wipes the tears from his face, terrified of being seen as weak or unaccommodating. He forces a bright, welcoming smile onto his face, though his lips are trembling. He leans back, fighting through the agonizing pain in shoulders, and fiercely pulls the rope, hoisting the heavy, dripping bucket over the edge of the stone wall. "Welcome, traveler," the villager says, his voice strained and thin. "Please, you must be so thirsty. I have plenty. I can draw more." He reaches out, preparing to tilt the heavy bucket toward the monk. But the monk does not step forward with an empty cup. He does not ask for anything. Instead, the monk steps close to the stone wall, reaches out his own steady hand, and places it gently but firmly directly over the rim of the heavy wooden bucket. The monk stops the movement. The villager freezes. He looks at the monk in confusion, his raw hand still gripping the heavy wooden handle. "Please," the villager insists, panic rising in his chest. "Take the water. I am happy to give it. I am here to serve." The monk looks down at the villager's hands. He sees the cracked skin, the blood, the calluses, and the violent trembling of muscles pushed far beyond their natural limits. Then, the monk turns his head slowly and looks across the courtyard, resting his gaze on the cracked, dry earth of the clay basin and the dying brown leaves of the parched lotus. For a long moment, the only sound is the wind moving through the dry grass. "You are a very kind man," the monk finally says, his voice as soft and cool as the water resting in the bucket. "But tell me, why do you murder your own beautiful garden to quench the thirst of a world that is perfectly capable of drawing its own water?" The villager stares at the monk, the words hitting him like a physical weight. I have to," the villager stammers, his forced smile finally collapsing. "If I do not give them the water, they will leave. I will be no use to anyone. It is my duty to be good." The monk shakes his head slowly, his eyes filled with a deep, boundless compassion that requires no performance, no transaction, and no heavy lifting. "You are giving away your life, my friend," the monk whispers softly. "You have confused self-destruction with love. You believe that your emptiness is a virtue, but a dry well cannot offer a drink, and a dead lotus cannot offer beauty to the world. By abandoning yourself, you are not saving anyone, you are only slowly erasing your own existence." The monk gently slides his hands over the villager's raw, trembling fingers and softly guides them to let go of the heavy wooden handle. "Let the bucket rest," the monk says. For the first time in years, the villager opens his hands. He lets go of the bucket. He steps back from the well. The sheer, overwhelming physical relief of no longer carrying the weight causes his knees to weaken, and he sinks slowly down onto the warm, sun-baked earth. The monk lifts the heavy bucket himself, but he does not drink from it. He turns, walks slowly across the courtyard, and stands before the parched, dying lotus. With incredible care, the monk tilts the bucket and begins to pour the cool, clear water directly into the cracked, dry clay. The sound is beautiful, a soft, steady, rhythmic splashing. The baked earth hisses quietly as it drinks the water in. The deep, jagged cracks begin to close. The water pools around the base of the delicate plant, soaking deep, deep down into the hidden, starving roots. The villager sits in the dirt, watching his own garden finally receive the water it has been begging for. A deep, heavy sob breaks in his chest. It is not a sob of pain, but a massive, uncontainable release of decades of held breath. He covers his face with his aching hands and weeps, finally allowing himself to feel the devastating loneliness of having abandoned himself for so long. The monk returns, setting the empty wooden bucket gently on the ground beside the villager. He sits down in the dust next to him, offering nothing but his quiet, warm presence. "It is time to water your own roots," the monk says quietly into the evening air. "The world can wait." In a moment, we will look deeply at what this beautiful, quiet realization means for you. We will gently explore the heavy wooden buckets you have been carrying for everyone else, and discover how profoundly safe it is to finally set them down. But for now, just breathe. Just rest in the quiet sanctuary of this room, knowing that the heavy lifting is done for tonight. The water is finally returning to your own soil. As the image of the exhausted villager weeping softly in the dust slowly settles into the quiet space of your mind, take a gentle, unhurried breath. Notice the cool, calm air entering your chest, and feel the soft, heavy release as it leaves your body. Picture the dry, cracked earth of the clay basin finally drinking in the cool, clear water. See the dying leaves of the lotus drinking deeply, their delicate veins filling with life after so long in the scorching sun, and feel the profound, soothing relief in the villager's raw hands, which are finally resting, completely empty, on his lap. If it feels right, bring your awareness gently back to your own hands right now, resting quietly beside you on the bed. Notice if there is any lingering tension in your fingers. Notice if you are still subtly gripping the sheets, or holding your hands tightly closed as if bracing for another demand. With profound gentleness, invite them to soften. Let them rest open, entirely empty, completely safe in the dark. This ancient story of the well and the dying lotus is not just a tale about a thirsty garden. It is a mirror, reflecting the quiet, hidden architecture of your own daily exhaustion. For a very long time, you have been that devoted, terrified villager. You have been standing at the center of your life, pulling the heavy, creaking rope of other people's expectations. You have carried the fragile, heavy burden of keeping everyone around you comfortable, peaceful, and satisfied. And when you have felt drained, because it is the absolute nature of human beings to run dry, when they are never replenished, you have not just felt a natural pang of fatigue, you have felt a crushing, devastating wave of guilt. When you think of saying no, when you imagine setting a boundary, or when you simply want to rest, you immediately run into the dark, punishing stories of your own mind. You tell yourself that if you put the bucket down, you are being selfish. You tell yourself that if you do not fix the problem, you are failing the people you love. You grip the rough rope as tightly as you can, letting it burn your hands, because a deep, frightened part of you believes that this painful labor is the only way you are allowed to earn your place in the world. But Buddhist wisdom offers us a profoundly different way to look at our exhaustion. When the Buddha spoke of human suffering, he was not speaking as a distant, unfeeling philosopher. He was acting as a gentle physician of the tired heart. He saw that the world will always have its demands. Life will always bring people who are thirsty, situations that are complicated, and conflicts that ask for our energy. This is what we might call the first arrow. It is the natural, unavoidable reality of simply living in a shared world. People will ask things of us. We cannot avoid this friction. It is the cost of living in a world alongside others. But the tragedy of our profound depletion does not come from this first arrow. It comes from what happens next. The deepest suffering, the agonizing, lonely, bleeding pain in your raw hands is the second arrow. The second arrow is what the mind adds to the original event. It is the frantic, terrifying story that says, if I do not pour this water, I am worthless. If they are unhappy, it is entirely my fault. The suffering was not only in the fact that the travelers were thirsty, the suffering was in the desperate, violent way the villager's mind believed he had to save them at the cost of his own life. Buddhist wisdom helps us see that we are constantly shooting this second arrow into our own hearts. We confuse people-pleasing with kindness. Kindness is a healthy, quiet offering that leaves room for your own humanity. But people-pleasing is a heavy, suffocating transaction. It says, "I will abandon myself to keep you happy, so that you will not abandon me." It demands the destruction of your own garden. When the traveling monk placed his hand over the bucket, he did not tell the villager that the travelers were evil. He did not pretend that the world was not thirsty. This story is not telling us to stop feeling or to ignore the pain of others, or to become cold and indifferent to the world. It is showing us something much quieter and infinitely more merciful. It is showing us how to stop adding a second wound to the first. Think about the heavy, anxious thoughts you have been carrying about the people in your life recently. The moments where you felt you had to manage their moods, fix their problems, or absorb their anger. You have been treating those moments like the heavy wooden bucket. You are holding them so tightly that they are making your soul bleed. You call this gripping being a good friend or being a responsible partner. You think that by feeling drained, you are being noble. We call this heavy, desperate grip attachment. In modern life, we often misunderstand this word. We think attachment means loving someone very deeply, but in the quiet wisdom of the masters, attachment is not love. Attachment is the tight, fearful feeling that says, "It must happen my way or I cannot be okay." You are attached to an impossible image of yourself as the endless provider. You are attached to the approval of others. Craving, then, is the exhausting, endless hunger to control how others perceive you. It is the desperate grip on the rope, pulling and pulling, trying to buy love with your own depletion. But this craving only traps you at the well. It pulls you completely out of the only place where peace actually exists. This very moment, right here, lying in this bed, breathing this calm night air. What the monk offered the villager is the true essence of compassion. In the Buddhist tradition, the practice of loving kindness is known as metta, but there is a vital, often forgotten truth about metta. True compassion is a circle, and if you do not include yourself in that circle, your compassion is incomplete. It is broken. Compassion is not a reward for sacrificing yourself. It is not something you only offer to the world while you starve in the shadows. Compassion is the profound strength to meet suffering without turning it into self-destruction. It is the realization that your own parched roots deserve exactly the same cool, clear water that you so freely pour for strangers. The monk also reminded the villager of the deep truth of impermanence. Impermanence is the beautiful, liberating reminder that nothing in this world is fixed. People's moods will shift. Their demands will change. You cannot permanently fill another person's cup because it is the nature of all cups to eventually empty again. Trying to permanently solve someone else's unhappiness is like trying to hold the wind in a wooden bucket. It is impossible, and it will only break your arms. When you attach your entire identity to being the one who fixes everything, you forget your true nature. You forget that you are not a machine designed for endless labor. You are a living, breathing heart. You are a vast, spacious awareness that is capable of noticing the thirst of the world without being entirely consumed by it. Mindfulness is not a rigid, punishing discipline. It is simply the quiet ability to see a thought without being dragged behind it. It is the space between the traveler asking for water and your hands instinctively reaching for the rope. Awareness is that quiet space. It is the part of you that can notice the familiar urge to please and softly say, "I see you, but I do not have to obey you right now." Letting go, therefore, does not mean you erase your love for others. It does not mean you abandon what matters. Letting go simply means releasing the extra struggle. It means opening your hands and stepping back from the well. You set the heavy expectations down on the ground. You recognize that you cannot save the world by starving yourself. You only cause more pain in the garden when you refuse to water your own lotus. As you lie here, safe and sheltered in the quiet of the night, realize that the endless line of demands is finally paused. The heavy wooden bucket is resting on the earth. You have been working so hard for the simple right to exist. You do not need to earn your rest tonight. The blanket covering you does not require an explanation of how helpful you were today. The pillow beneath your head does not ask for proof of your selflessness. The night air does not judge the boundaries you need to set. The physical world is already holding you perfectly, exactly as you are, tired and empty and entirely worthy of being refilled. Peace is not the state of everyone else being perfectly happy with you. Peace is the quiet, steady rhythm of your breathing right after you have given yourself permission to disappoint someone gently in order to save yourself. It is the cool water finally sinking into your own roots. Slowly, gently, we are going to learn how to let the mind follow the body into that exact same embrace. We are going to practice being the quiet, traveling monk to our own frightened, exhausted inner villager. We are going to gently practice stopping the heavy pulley of the mind and guiding our own scattered energy back to our own center. In a moment, we will bring this wisdom inward. We will not force your fears of rejection to vanish instantly, and we will not demand that your mind become perfectly blank. We will simply offer your tired, people-pleasing heart a softer place to land. But for now, just allow the words you have heard to wash over you. Let them settle wherever they are needed. You are perfectly safe right where you are. Breathe in the cool, quiet air and let the heavy bucket rest on the ground. As you rest here, surrounded by the quiet, uninterrupted stillness of the night, allow the gentle truth of the monk's words to continue echoing softly in your mind. You are not a machine designed for endless labor. You are a living, breathing heart. Let that realization settle over you like a soft, heavy blanket. If your mind tries to argue with this truth, if it immediately tries to list all the people who still need you, or all the tasks you have left unfinished, simply let the mind speak without answering it. You do not have to debate your own worthiness tonight. You only have to breathe. Let us begin to softly untangle the physical knots that people-pleasing has tied within your body. For so many of us, the burden of constantly managing other people's emotions is not just a mental exercise, it is a profound physical weight that we carry every single hour of the day. Bring your awareness, very gently, to the center of your stomach. This is often where the desperate need to please makes its home. It feels like a tightness, a guarded armor, a subtle nervous fluttering that constantly anticipates the next demand, the next conflict, the next heavy bucket you will be asked to pull. If it feels right, take a slow, deep breath directly into that space in your stomach. Imagine that you are breathing in the cool, clear air of the mountain night. Let the breath fill you completely, expanding your center, and as you exhale, imagine that heavy, anxious knot beginning to loosen just a fraction. You do not need to force it open. You are simply offering it a little space to breathe. You are telling your nervous system that the line of travelers has finally gone home. Now, let your attention drift up to your chest and your shoulders. Notice if you are clenching your muscles there, holding yourself rigidly together out of the deep habit of bracing for the world. With a long, slow exhale, invite your shoulders to soften entirely. Let them drop. Feel them sinking deeper into the soft mattress beneath you. The bed is holding you securely. You are not standing beside the well right now. You are safe in your room, perfectly sheltered, and there is absolutely nothing you need to lift, carry, or fix tonight. As your body continues to soften and sink into this deep, restful, heavy state, you might find that a familiar, anxious thought drifts into your awareness. Perhaps it is a memory from earlier today, a moment where you automatically said yes to something when your entire body was screaming no. Perhaps it is a harsh, critical voice reminding you of an email you haven't answered. Or a quiet, lingering anxiety about someone's tone of voice, wondering if they are secretly upset with you. When this thought arrives, your first instinct might be to tense your body again. You might feel the sudden urge to reach for your phone, to immediately start planning an apology, or to mentally rehearse a conversation to ensure you keep the peace. But tonight, we are practicing a different way. We are practicing the gentle wisdom of looking at the urge to fix, without actually reaching for the rope. Do not push the anxious thought away, and do not let it drag you back into the exhausting cycle of performing. Just let it be seen. Look at this memory or this worry with profound gentleness, as if you are observing a frightened, exhausted villager who simply does not know how to rest. This thought is not a command. It is just your mind's misdirected attempt to keep you safe from rejection. It is trying to protect you, but it is using the wrong tools. Let us softly name this emotional pattern together. You might silently say to yourself, this is the urge to manage someone else's feelings, or this is the heavy feeling of my own fear of disappointing them, or simply, this is my habit of abandoning myself. By naming it gently, without any anger or frustration, you strip away its terrifying power over you. You create a tiny, beautiful space between who you are and what you are feeling. You step back from being the exhausted laborer, and you become the quiet, spacious awareness that simply notices the labor. Even noticing this is enough. Now I invite you to call upon the image of the ancient stone well and the heavy wooden bucket. See it clearly in your mind's eye. Imagine that the specific worry or the scattered energy you are feeling right now, the energy you have been pouring out to everyone else today, is the water inside that bucket. Picture yourself holding the rough hemp rope in your hands. Notice how tightly you are gripping it. Notice how your muscles are trembling under the strain of carrying everyone else's comfort. Acknowledge how hard you have worked to hold onto this rope, believing that this suffering was a necessary proof of your love. Acknowledge the sheer heartbreaking exhaustion of carrying it for so long. And now, if it feels right, imagine yourself standing in the quiet courtyard, feeling the gentle, steady presence of the traveling monk beside you. Slowly, deliberately, and with profound self-compassion, invite your fingers to uncurl. You do not have to hold the world up anymore. Simply let your hands open. Watch as the heavy hemp rope slides from your palms. Watch the wooden bucket come to rest gently on the stone edge of the well. You are no longer carrying it. You are no longer using your own precious life force to frantically fill everyone else's cup while you starve. It is just a bucket resting on the stone, entirely harmless now that you have stopped pulling. Feel the immediate rushing sense of lightness in your hands, your arms, your chest, and your back. The gripping is over. The transaction is finished. Now imagine taking hold of that bucket, not to give it away to a stranger, but to carry it gently, slowly, toward your own small garden. Walk toward the parched, cracked earth of your own life. Stand before your own wilting lotus. Imagine gently tilting the bucket. Watch as the cool, clear, life-giving water pours out, falling beautifully onto the dry soil of your own heart. Hear the soft, rhythmic sound of the water hitting the earth. Imagine the smell of rain on dry ground. Watch the deep, jagged cracks in the clay basin slowly drink the water in, closing up, becoming rich and dark and nourished. As you gently water your own roots in your mind's eye, offer yourself a simple phrase of compassion. You do not need to speak it out loud, just let the words echo softly in your mind, like ripples on a still pond. May I allow myself to receive, may I trust that I am worthy of my own care, may I be at peace. If your mind suddenly wanders, or if you feel a sudden, anxious surge of guilt, a feeling that you are being selfish for keeping the water for yourself, please do not be angry with your mind. This is simply the deep, ingrained habit of a heart that is terrified of setting boundaries. It is the habit of a person who does not yet fully trust that they are allowed to take up space. If you notice your hands mentally tightening around the rope again, searching for someone else to serve, smile gently at the urge. Acknowledge the mind's deep fear of being unhelpful. And then, slowly, patiently, let your fingers uncurl one more time. Pour the water back onto your own roots. You can return to this open, receiving posture whenever you are ready. There is no timeline here. There is no rush to achieve perfect boundaries or flawless inner peace. Even the smallest willingness to set the heavy bucket down is a massive victory for your tired heart. Every drop of water you allow yourself to keep is an act of profound spiritual courage. Take a very slow, deep breath in, drawing that cool, calming night air all the way down into your belly, imagining it as fresh water soaking into your roots, and as you exhale, let your body sink another inch into the mattress. Let the bed take all of your weight. You are perfectly safe. No one is asking anything of you. This beautiful, quiet yielding, this releasing of the rope and watering of the self, is the gateway to true inner freedom. It is the end of the exhausting performance. But to truly understand how deeply this self-compassion can transform your relationships and your life, we must look a little further down the path. We must explore what happens when we stop trying to shape-shift to please the aesthetic demands of the world. Because Buddhist wisdom does not simply teach us to rest when we are tired. It teaches us how to beautifully, remarkably change the way we grow. In a moment we will travel further in time. We will encounter another quiet teaching, one that will show us that the effort we put into twisting ourselves to fit other people's expectations is the very thing destroying our natural beauty. But for now, just breathe, just exist. Just allow yourself the incredibly rare luxury of not serving a single soul for this one quiet moment. The heavy bucket is on the ground. Your hands are resting, and you are, at long last, allowed to simply drink the water yourself. As the quiet, effortless rhythm of your breath continues to anchor you in the profound safety of this room, allow your mind to drift gently back to that distant, sun-baked valley. Time, as it always does, flowed forward like a quiet, steady river. Decades passed since the afternoon the exhausted villager wept in the dust beside the heavy wooden bucket. The man who once believed his only worth was in draining himself for others did not remain empty. Because he finally learnt the quiet discipline of watering his own roots. His small, dying garden did not just survive, it expanded. Over the years it grew into a vast, breathtaking sanctuary of deep shade, rich emerald moss, and towering, healthy trees. The ancient stone well remained, and he still offered water to travelers. But he no longer operated the heavy pulley from a place of frantic, terrified obligation. He gave from his overflow, and when the sun grew too hot, or his body grew tired, he simply closed the wooden gate and rested in the cool shade of his own thriving lotus pond. He had become a master of his own peace. One humid, breathless afternoon, the quiet of the garden was interrupted by the sound of rapid, anxious footsteps. A young woman hurried through the wooden gate. She was trembling, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with a familiar, desperate exhaustion. In her hands, she carried a small, shallow ceramic pot. Inside the pot was a miniature pine tree. It was meant to be a beautiful ancient style of bonsai, but the tree was in agonizing distress. Its delicate trunk was severely bent, wrapped tightly from the roots to the highest branches in thick, rigid copper wire. The wire had been twisted so aggressively that it was biting deeply into the soft bark, leaving permanent, painful scars. The small, needle-like leaves were turning a brittle, sickly yellow, dropping one by one onto the dry soil. The young woman fell to her knees before the old master, holding the dying tree out as if offering a confession. "I do not understand," she cried, her voice cracking with pure frustration. "I have done everything perfectly. I have worked so hard. Why is it dying?" The master sat quietly on the wooden veranda, pouring a small cup of pale green tea. He did not rush to take the tree from her. He simply gestured for her to sit in the shade, sliding the warm, soothing cup of tea across the low wooden table toward her. "Tell me about your work," the master said softly. The woman took a shaky breath, her hands hovering anxiously over the twisted branches. "I live on the main road of the village," she explained, the words tumbling out in a rushed, frantic stream. "Everyone who walks by can see my porch, so every morning I check this tree. If a branch grows too far to the left, and I worry it looks messy to the neighbors, I wrap it in wire and bend it violently to the right. If the leaves cast a shadow that my friends might find displeasing, I prune them away immediately. I move the pot 5 times a day to catch different angles of the sun, just to make sure it looks absolutely flawless from the street." She looked down at her own hands. They were covered in tiny cuts from the sharp wire and callouses from the heavy pruning shears. "I stay awake at night," she whispered, a tear finally escaping and sliding down her cheek, "worrying that I have shaped it wrong, worrying that someone will walk by tomorrow, look at my tree and judge me for it. I am constantly managing it. I give it all my energy. I never leave it alone. So why is it failing me?" Does the frantic, exhausting labor of this young woman feel familiar to you? Look closely at the way she treats the small pine tree. She is completely consumed by how that tree is perceived by others. She is so terrified of judgment, so desperate for the approval of the neighbors, the friends, and the strangers on the road, that she is violently twisting the tree out of its natural shape. This is exactly what we do to our own lives when we are trapped in the lonely cycle of people-pleasing. You are the young woman, and your own beautiful, natural spirit is the tree. Every time you change your personality to avoid a conflict, you are wrapping a thick copper wire around your own trunk. Every time you swallow your true feelings to keep someone else comfortable, you are violently pruning away your own leaves. You constantly move yourself, bend yourself, and twist your own boundaries, desperately trying to construct a version of yourself that everyone else will applaud. And just like the young woman, you stay awake at night, analyzing every conversation, wondering if you bent yourself perfectly enough to avoid being disliked. You call this hypervigilance caring. You think that by anticipating everyone's judgments, you are protecting yourself. The old master listened to the young woman. In absolute silence, he let her tears fall. He allowed the frantic energy of her confession to slowly settle into the quiet, grounding atmosphere of his garden. The smell of rich, damp earth and roasted tea hung peacefully in the air. Finally, the master leaned forward. He did not look at the woman with pity, but with a profound, unshakable clarity. "The tree is not failing you," the master said gently, "and it is not dying from a lack of effort. It is dying from a lack of peace." The young woman looked up, wiping her eyes, confused. "But I pay attention to it constantly," she argued softly. "I never stop fixing it." "Exactly," the master nodded. "You have given it 1,000 demands, but you have never once given it permission to simply be itself. You are trying to force a living thing to grow according to the aesthetic preferences of strangers. A pine tree knows how to be a pine tree. It has its own nature. It has its own wisdom. But you are suffocating its life force with the heavy, rigid wires of expectation." He reached out and gently touched one of the yellowing, brittle needles. "True growth," the master whispered, "does not happen when we are constantly being watched, managed, and manipulated. True growth happens in the quiet dark, when the roots are left entirely alone." The words drifted through the warm afternoon air, settling heavily into the young woman's chest. She stared at the tight, suffocating copper wire cutting into the bark of the delicate tree. For the very first time, she did not see a project she had failed to manage perfectly. She saw a living thing that was simply exhausted from being tortured into a shape it was never meant to hold. And in that profound, quiet moment of recognition, She suddenly saw herself. She felt the deep, painful ache in her own shoulders. She felt the heavy, suffocating wires she had wrapped around her own heart, twisting her own desires, her own voice, and her own boundaries, just to keep the peace in her village. She realized that by desperately trying to keep everyone else happy, she was slowly killing her own spirit. Her performance was not love. It was control, born entirely of fear. The young woman did not magically become a perfectly enlightened master in that exact moment. She was still afraid of what her neighbors might think. Her hands were still tired. But a profound, quiet shift happened within her heart. She took a slow, deep breath, pulling the cool, fragrant air of the garden all the way into her tight, anxious chest. She let it out with a long, trembling sigh. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, sharp pair of metal clippers. She did not prune the tree. Instead, with immense care and a remarkably steady hand, she reached down and snipped the thick copper wire at the base of the trunk. Snap! The sound was sharp and incredibly satisfying in the quiet courtyard. Slowly, carefully, she began to unspool the heavy, restrictive wire. She worked her way up the trunk, releasing the bent branches, unwinding the tight coils that had caused so much pain. She did not try to force the branches back into place. She simply removed the tension and allowed the wood to rest exactly where it fell. When the final piece of wire was removed, the tree looked different. It was no longer a perfectly symmetrical, flawless object designed for public display. It was a little uneven. It bore the visible scars of the wire, but it was finally, beautifully breathing. The young woman gathered the heavy coils of copper wire and set them on the wooden table, pushing them far away from the ceramic pot. She looked up at the old master. Her face was no longer tight with frantic anxiety. It was soft, open, and incredibly tired, but lined with a deep, newfound relief. "What do I do with it now?" she asked quietly. The master smiled, his eyes crinkling with warmth. He pointed toward a quiet, shaded corner of his courtyard, hidden behind a large stone lantern, completely out of sight from the main road and the passing neighbors. "Put it there," he said softly. "Water the roots, and then do the hardest, bravest thing you have ever done. Leave it alone." The young woman stood up. She carried the small ceramic pot to the quiet, hidden corner. She set it down in the gentle, dappled shade. She poured a small cup of cool water over the roots, watching the earth drink it in. And then she took a step back. She did not adjust the leaves. She did not twist the trunk. She simply let the tree exist, entirely unmanaged, entirely unperformed, and entirely safe. This beautiful, quiet transformation is waiting for you, dear friend. For so long, you have lived your life wrapped in the heavy, tight wires of everyone else's expectations. You have twisted your schedule, bent your boundaries, and pruned away your own joy just to ensure that no one is ever disappointed in you. You have been performing your life rather than actually living it. What would happen if, just for tonight, you stopped twisting the branches? What if you allowed yourself to be like the tree in the quiet, shaded corner of the courtyard? What if you took away the heavy wire of needing to be perfect, needing to be helpful, needing to be the one who fixes everything? What if you simply allowed yourself to be a little uneven, a little tired, and wonderfully, perfectly unmanaged? As you lie here, listening to the quiet sounds of the night, see if you can gently practice unwinding just one of those invisible wires. When the thought arises that you must do more, give more, or be more for someone else tomorrow, notice the familiar instinct to brace yourself. Feel the subtle tightening in your chest or your stomach. And then, intentionally, lovingly, soften those muscles. Imagine yourself snipping the wire. Let the expectation fall away. You do not have to perform tonight. You are allowed to simply exist in the shade. In a moment, we will look even deeper into this profound psychological truth. We will explore exactly why your mind is so convinced it must twist itself to fit the world, and how Buddhist wisdom offers a gentle, practical way to finally leave the heavy wires behind. But for now, just breathe. Feel the quiet relief of resting exactly as you are. Know that your own nature is perfectly safe, precisely because you are finally letting yourself be. As the image of the young woman gently snipping the heavy copper wire slowly settles into the quiet space of your mind, take an unhurried, gentle breath. Notice how the simple idea of being left alone, of resting completely unmanaged in the shaded corner of a courtyard, feels within your own body, for a mind that is so incredibly used to constant performance. The concept of leaving your own branches alone, of not actively trying to twist yourself into a more pleasing shape, can feel entirely foreign. It might even feel a little terrifying at first. You might be wondering how you could possibly survive, or how anyone could ever love you, if you simply stopped working so hard to be exactly what they need. To understand why your mind is so deeply afraid of letting go of the wire, we must look at the quiet, invisible architecture of your own suffering. We must look at the reasons you felt you had to twist your own heart in the first place. From a very young age, we are taught to fear uncertainty. We are taught that the unknown reactions of others are a dark forest full of danger, and that our only defense against abandonment is to prepare, to adapt, and to perfectly manage the emotional weather of the people around us. Over the years, this deep desire for safety hardens into a rigid psychological armor. You began to believe that if you could just anticipate every possible problem, if you could just read every room perfectly, and become exactly what everyone wanted, you could prevent yourself from ever being rejected. This is why, late at night, when the house is finally quiet and your tired body is begging for rest, your mind suddenly begins to frantically rehearse the future. It plays out endless, exhausting scenarios. You imagine conversations that have not yet happened, carefully scripting your words to ensure you do not cause offense. You prepare elaborate defenses and apologies for conflicts that do not actually exist. You try to perfectly map out a tomorrow that is entirely unwritten, believing that if you just worry enough, you can control how other people will perceive you. You are trying to prune the tree before the sun even rises. And when your mind is not rushing frantically into the future, it is often dragged heavily backward, replaying the past. You sift through the ordinary interactions of your day, analyzing every word you spoke, every glance you received, searching for any subtle sign that you might have disappointed someone. You wish you had spoken differently, smiled wider, or agreed faster. You do this because a frightened part of you believes that if you just understand the past perfectly, you can somehow fix it, or at least guarantee you will never ever make the mistake of causing friction again. But this constant mental time travel is exhausting. It pulls you entirely out of the only place where peace actually exists. This very moment, right here, lying in this bed, breathing this cool, calm night air. The deepest exhaustion you carry does not come from the physical tasks you have to do tomorrow. It comes from the heavy, suffocating illusion that you must control how everyone else feels. We confuse control with safety. We believe that if we are the ones managing the emotional temperature of the room, then we are safe from sudden storms. We build an entire identity around this hypervigilance. We become the peacemaker, the fixer, the endless giver, the one who desperately needs the approval of others just to feel a fleeting, fragile sense of worthiness. Over time, this relentless pursuit of approval becomes a prison. You turn your own pain into your identity. When you feel the natural limits of your own energy, you do not simply say, "I am tired," you say, "I am failing them." You take the natural, passing weather of human exhaustion and you turn it into a permanent crisis of character. You have been taught that if you judge yourself harshly enough for having boundaries, you will eventually become a better, more selfless person. You have believed that guilt is a necessary, effective tool for maintaining relationships. You have thought that trying to fix the self through shame, punishing yourself for not being a bottomless well of energy, is the only way to prove you are good. But shame has never healed a single human heart. Self-judgment does not make you a better friend or a more loving partner. It only makes you resentful and heavy. It does not make the tree grow stronger. It only cuts deeper into the bark. It is the extra suffering poured onto a spirit that only ever needed to be watered and left alone. Consider the profound, quiet relief in realizing that almost all of your current exhaustion comes from what you are adding to your relationships, not what is actually required of you. Buddhist wisdom offers a remarkably gentle correction to this exhausting way of living. The Buddha observed that as human beings, we are constantly pierced by what he called two arrows. We can think of these as two distinct kinds of pain. The first pain is the inevitable reality of life. It is the moment someone is genuinely disappointed that you cannot help them. It is the sudden, awkward silence when you say no to a request. It is the natural friction of two human beings having different needs at the same time. We cannot avoid the first pain. No amount of worry, no amount of shape-shifting, and no amount of rigid perfectionism can stop other people from occasionally feeling let down. It is simply the nature of a world where everyone is navigating their own complex lives. But the Buddha noticed something tragic about the human condition. When the first pain strikes, when someone is simply disappointed, we immediately, unconsciously, shoot a second arrow into our own hearts. The second pain is what your mind adds to the first. It is the resistance to reality. It is the desperate attempt to twist the branches back into a pleasing shape. When you feel that brief, natural flutter of tension, the first pain, your mind immediately panics and says, "They are mad at me. I have ruined the relationship. I am a terrible person. If I do not fix their mood right now, they will leave me." That judgment, that panic, that harsh self-criticism, and the desperate urge to abandon your boundary to appease them, that is the second pain. When you fall short of someone's expectations, the natural consequence is the first pain, but the days, weeks, and years you spend punishing yourself, calling yourself selfish, and believing you are unworthy of love because you have limits, that is the second pain. You are tearing at your own skin over a simple moment of human friction. We cannot always control the first pain. Life will happen. People will want water when your well is empty. But we can absolutely learn to stop feeding the second pain. You do not have to fight your own mind, and you do not have to fight the feelings of others. When a wave of guilt or the fear of uncertainty arises in the quiet of this room, you do not need to immediately understand it, fix it, or force it to disappear. You can simply let it be there. You can be like the vast, spacious courtyard. You can say to the feeling of guilt, "I see you. I know you are trying to keep me safe from rejection, but you are allowed to pass through." This is the beautiful, quiet secret of true inner peace. We spend our whole lives waiting for a day when everyone around us will be perfectly happy. A day when no one will ever need anything from us. A day when we will finally be granted permission to rest. We think peace is the absolute absence of difficulty. We think peace is the perfectly pruned, universally admired tree. But peace is not the absence of difficulty. Peace is a fundamentally different relationship with difficulty. Peace is knowing that someone else might be upset, but refusing to let their upset become your emergency. It is the profound realization that you are not responsible for the emotional weather of the entire world. You are not your anxious thoughts. You are not the heavy expectations that other people have placed upon your shoulders. And you are certainly not the harsh words of your own inner critic. You are the quiet, spacious awareness that observes all of these things passing through. You are the deep, quiet root system drinking water in the dark. If you try to stop the wind from blowing by standing in the yard and trying to catch it in your bare hands, you will eventually collapse in your own exhaustion. The wind will always blow. Other people will always have feelings, demands, and reactions. But if you step back, walk onto the shaded porch, and sit quietly, the wind is no longer your enemy. It is just moving air. You can watch the trees sway. You can listen to the sound, but you do not have to control the sky. Right now, in the absolute safety of this room, I invite you to step off the wind-swept road and onto the quiet porch. If there is a thought about tomorrow's obligations that is pulling at your attention, gently recognize that it is just the wind rushing by. You do not need to jump up and wrestle with it. Just let it flow. If there is a heavy feeling of guilt or a lingering sense that you have not given enough to someone today, recognize it as the second arrow. It is just a sensation. It is uncomfortable, perhaps, but it cannot actually harm you unless you brace yourself against it and turn it into a reason to hate yourself. Let your chest soften. Let your belly relax. Allow the feeling to enter, swirl around for a moment, and naturally exit. Notice how when you stop trying to twist yourself into the perfect shape, a deep, natural sense of wholeness begins to emerge on its own. You do not need to be heavily managed, because your deepest nature was never flawed. You were only covered up by layers of exhaustion, fear, and the desperate, heartbreaking effort to keep the whole world happy. Underneath all that heavy wire, beneath the blistered hands and the calloused fingers, there is a version of you that is incredibly soft, naturally wise, and completely at rest. This part of you does not need to earn love through endless, back-breaking labor. This part of you is perfectly worthy of peace simply because you exist. As you breathe in, feel the cool night air returning you to this profound, unshakable truth. And as you breathe out, release one more heavy expectation you have been carrying for someone else. You do not have to be the endless well tonight. The universe is entirely capable of nourishing itself while you sleep. In a moment, we will explore what this beautiful realization looks like when the sun actually comes up. We will look at how to walk through your daily life, your relationships, your work, your ordinary, demanding moments without picking the heavy copper wire back up. We will gently uncover how to apply the wisdom of the untouched tree to the modern world. But for now, remain in this quiet, spacious emptiness. Feel the deep comfort of a mind that has finally, beautifully, stopped fighting its own nature. As you rest in this quiet, open space, completely unmanaged and beautifully still, you might begin to wonder how to carry this profound peace into tomorrow. It is easy to feel safe in the dark, when the world is asleep and absolutely no one is asking anything of you. But what happens when the sun rises? What happens when the silence of this room is inevitably replaced by the loud, demanding, and complex noise of modern life? It is so incredibly easy, when faced with the pressures of the day, to instinctively reach back down, pick up that heavy copper wire, and begin twisting yourself all over again to keep everyone happy. But tomorrow can be different. The peace you are touching right now is not a fragile, delicate thing that shatters the moment your alarm rings. Peace is practiced in small moments. It is a quiet, continuous choice to leave your own branches alone. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. Before your feet even touch the floor, the modern world will try to rush in. Your mind may habitually pull you toward the glowing screen beside your bed. You might find yourself checking the phone for reassurance, or staring at a screen, waiting for a text message, allowing the silence of another person to dictate your entire sense of worth for the day. In that brief, ordinary moment, you might notice the old habit rising, the sudden tightening of the stomach, the familiar fear of not being enough, the desperate urge to immediately start shape-shifting to secure their approval. When that happens, I invite you to simply pause. A breath before answering is a form of wisdom. You do not have to absorb the urgency of the world. You can look at the phone, recognize the small flutter of anxiety, and say to yourself, "This is just the wind. I do not need to brace the tree." You can simply take a slow, deep breath, feel the solid ground beneath your feet, and choose to begin your day at your own gentle pace. You do not have to immediately pull the heavy rope of the well. As you move through your morning, perhaps you will find yourself in those familiar spaces where you are so used to performing. Maybe you will walk into your workplace or sit down with your family, feeling the immense exhausting pressure of smiling while feeling incredibly heavy inside. For so long, you have believed that you must hide your exhaustion to be valuable. You have believed that pretending to be okay and absorbing everyone else's stress is the only way to keep the peace. But remember the tree in the quiet, shaded corner of the courtyard. You do not have to be flawlessly manicured to be worthy of taking up space. You can participate in your life without putting on the heavy mask of the endless giver. When you feel the urge to jump in and fix someone else's mood, or when you find yourself trying to control a relationship because you are fearing the future and terrified of uncertainty, gently remind your tired heart to soften. You can care deeply without gripping tightly. To love someone truly is to love them with open hands, allowing them to have their own feelings without absorbing their weather as your own. And to love yourself truly is to allow yourself to be human in their presence, which means being tired, having boundaries, saying no, and letting the bucket rest safely on the ground. Throughout the day, your mind will undoubtedly try to trick you. It will try to drag you into the painful trap of comparison. Scrolling through images of other people's lives, or listening to colleagues talk about their achievements, you might feel the sudden sharp sting of comparing yourself to others. You might look at where they are and look at where you are and feel the deep, aching grief of feeling behind in life. The inner critic will suddenly awaken, whispering that your garden is not blooming fast enough, that you have made too many mistakes, and that you must immediately twist your branches to catch up to everyone else. When this heavy wave crashes over you, remember that not every thought deserves obedience. Not every feeling is a command. The thought that you're behind in life is just a story. It is a harsh, fictional narrative created by a society that values the appearance of the tree over the deep health of the root. You do not have to debate the thought. You do not have to prove it wrong. You can simply observe it, the way you would observe a dark, heavy cloud passing across a vast, open sky. Your timeline is uniquely your own. The detours, the pauses, and the quiet, lonely seasons are not signs of failure. They are the necessary, hidden work of the roots drinking in the dark. And what happens when you actually make a mistake tomorrow? Because you will. You are human, and the first arrow will always fly. You might say the wrong thing. You might disappoint a friend. You might drop a responsibility because your hands were simply too full. Immediately, the old habit will rush in. You will find yourself replaying a mistake over and over again in your mind, rushing toward the heavy wire, ready to punish yourself to make amends. In that exact moment, practice the gentle art of doing nothing. Stop, breathe. Notice the tightening in your jaw and your hands. You can forgive yourself without denying what happened. You can say, I made a mistake, but this mistake does not demand my self-destruction. You do not have to drain your well completely dry to pay for your error. You can simply apologize, make amends if needed, and gently, beautifully leave yourself alone. When you stop treating every interaction as a test of your worth, you will find that a profound, quiet grace enters your daily life. The fear of what everyone else is thinking begins to dissolve, replaced by the simple, beautiful reality of just living this one ordinary day. You will stop living for the imagined audience and start living for the quiet truth of your own heart. And finally, think of what happens when the day ends. Think of returning to your quiet room, exactly as you are now, your body aching for sleep, wanting rest, but feeling deeply guilty for resting. How many times have you lain awake at night, going over a mental ledger of everything you did for others today, trying to calculate if you gave enough, fixed enough, and smiled enough to earn the right to close your eyes. This is the ultimate illusion of the exhausted people-pleaser. You can rest without earning it. Rest is not a prize given only to those who have completely satisfied the infinite demands of the world, because the world will never stop asking for water. Rest is your natural, inherent right. It is the quiet sanctuary where you are meant to return every single night to be restored. You can be tired, unfinished, imperfect, and completely unmanaged, and still be entirely worthy of profound peace. Let this truth sink deeply into your physical body right now. Feel the weight of it settling into your muscles, your bones, and your slow, steady breathing. You do not need to be the savior anymore today. The universe is entirely capable of holding itself together while you sleep. As you lie here, noticing the slow, easy rhythm of your breath, realize that the deep transformation you have been seeking is already happening. It is not happening with a loud crash of sudden enlightenment. It is happening in the quiet, gentle unwinding of the wire. It is happening in the softening of your stomach. It is happening in the beautiful, silent permission you have finally given yourself to simply be perfectly, wonderfully human. Every time you choose to take a breath instead of immediately answering a demand, you are practicing peace. Every time you choose to leave the heavy bucket on the ground, you are walking the path of wisdom. Every time you refuse to twist your own heart to please a stranger, you are deeply watering your own roots. You have done beautifully tonight. You have bravely looked at the heavy burden of performance you were carrying, and you have had the immense courage to simply step off the stage. In a moment, we will let all of these words, all of these stories, and all of these gentle reflections dissolve entirely into the dark. We will leave the demands of the world completely behind and drift together into the deep, profound stillness of the night. There is nothing left to fix. There is only the sweet, heavy embrace of true, unbroken sleep. As the shadows in your room stretch and soften, let the remaining echoes of the day fade completely into the background. The heavy lifting is truly finished. You have carried enough for one lifetime, and certainly enough for one day. Now, the only task that remains is the profound, beautiful act of surrendering entirely to the dark. Listen to the silence of your room. It is not an empty, lonely silence. It is a rich, full, holding silence. It is the silence of a garden that has finally been watered, a quiet sanctuary where no one is asking anything of you, no one is waiting for you to perform, and no one is demanding that you bend yourself to fit their needs. It is just you, the cool night air, and the slow, effortless rhythm of your own breathing. Imagine the moon slowly rising over that ancient stone-lined courtyard in the valley. Its pale silver light casts long, soothing shadows across the ground. The heavy wooden bucket is resting silently on the earth. It will not move tonight. The thick, rough hemp rope lies perfectly still. The tight, suffocating copper wires are gone, and in the quiet corner, nestled in the damp, rich earth, your own beautiful lotus is finally drinking in the dark. The leaves are soft, the roots are full, and the air smells of fresh water and deep rest. Let the image of that deep, nourishing water sinking into the roots mirror the physical feeling in your own body right now. With your next slow, effortless exhale, feel a wave of profound, comforting heaviness wash over you. Let your eyes sink deeper into their resting place. The muscles around your eyes, which have spent all day scanning the world for subtle signs of disappointment, are completely off duty now. Let them soften entirely. Let the space between your eyebrows smooth out, releasing the very last trace of worry. Notice your jaw and the subtle tension you carry there. Notice your throat, where you may have swallowed so many of your own truths today just to keep the peace. With a gentle, loving intention, let your jaw fall slightly slack. Let your throat open and soften. The words you did not say today do not need to be said tonight. The defenses you built to protect everyone's feelings are melting away into the cool night air. You do not have to hold your expression together anymore. The dark does not require a brave face. It only requires your peace. Feel this heavy, warm relaxation pour slowly down your neck and cascade across your shoulders. Your shoulders have braced the weight of the sky for everyone else, but they do not need to hold it tonight. Let them melt completely into the mattress. Feel the softness travel down your arms, flowing gently past your elbows, moving through your wrists, and pooling quietly in your open palms. Your hands are entirely empty. The rope is gone. The shears are gone. They are soft, open, and beautifully at peace. Let this deep, replenishing rest flow into your chest. The invisible armor you wore to absorb the emotional weather of the world is dissolving. Your stomach, once tight and fluttering with the anxiety of performing, is now incredibly soft, rising and falling effortlessly with the gentle, rhythmic tide of your breath. Like a still, dark pond reflecting the moonlight, your center is completely undisturbed. Let the heaviness travel down through your hips, uncoiling any hidden tension in your back. Let it wash through your legs, moving past your knees, all the way down to the soles of your tired feet. Your entire body is now anchored to the bed. You are grounded, safe, and deeply held by the earth beneath you. You are no longer floating in the frantic, anxious winds of other people's expectations. You are rooted. You do not even need to hold on to the words we have shared tonight. You do not need to memorize these Buddhist teachings, or turn the idea of setting boundaries into yet another exhausting, perfect project for tomorrow. Let the stories of the exhausted villager, the monk and the young woman with the tree gently drift away. Let them sink quietly into the deep, fertile soil of your own heart. Your inner wisdom has already received the water. It will remember the truth for you. You can simply let your mind become wonderfully, beautifully empty. If a stray thought about a friend, a task, or a stranger drifts into your awareness now, you do not even need to look at it. Just let it pass like a small pale cloud drifting slowly across the face of the moon. You are off the clock. The endless, exhausting shift of pleasing the world is over. Tonight you are returning to the most sacred sanctuary in the world, the quiet temple of your own inherent worth. For so long, you searched for a home in the approval of others. You wandered through the world, pouring yourself out, hoping someone would finally notice your emptiness and build a roof over your tired head. But you were the home all along. You belonged to yourself. Your energy, your love, your quiet presence, they belong to you first. You are fully permitted to lay your burden down. You do not have to solve your entire life tonight. You do not have to fix your relationships before you fall asleep. You do not have to plan your apologies or figure out exactly how to politely say no tomorrow. The universe is incredibly vast, ancient, and entirely capable of carrying its own weight. Let the stars hold the sky. Let the earth hold the trees. Let the bed hold you. You have done enough. You have given enough. You are enough. Breathe in and feel the cool, quiet peace of the night filling your chest. Breathe out and sink another inch into the heavy, welcoming dark. You are safe. You are deeply understood. You are loved simply because you exist, completely independent of what you can do for anyone else. You are watered, and you are finally, beautifully left alone to grow. Drift now. Sink deeper and deeper into the profound stillness. Let the edges of the room blur and fade away. There is nowhere else you need to go. There is absolutely nothing left to give. And what if the love you spent your entire life trying to earn from the world was simply waiting for you to finally offer it to yourself?